The morning sun barely touched the peaks of the Rocky Mountains when Commander Susan Baker received the alert that would change human history forever. She stood in the Earth Defense Force headquarters, her coffee getting cold on the desk beside her, as she stared at the massive screen showing an unknown object approaching Earth's orbit. "Are we sure this isn't one of ours?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. The object's design was unlike anything humans had ever built. "No, ma'am," Lieutenant John Mitchell replied, his fingers flying over the control panel. "It's about 3 times the size of our largest space station, and it's slowing down. They're making a controlled approach." The room fell silent. After years of searching the stars and wondering if humanity was alone, they finally had their answer. First contact was about to happen, ready or not. Within hours, the alien ship had settled into a stable orbit, and the first transmission came through. They called themselves the Zaxians, a species from a distant empire that spanned hundreds of star systems. Their holographic images showed tall, elegant beings with silvery skin and 4 arms, wearing ornate robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. Commander Baker led the initial response team. As the highest-ranking officer present with diplomatic training, she became humanity's first official representative to an alien species. The Zaxians requested a meeting on their ship, and after careful consideration, Earth's governments agreed. The journey to the Zaxian vessel took place in Earth's most advanced shuttle. Along with Commander Baker, the team included Dr. Kevin Howard, Earth's leading xenobiologist, and Lieutenant Mitchell, who served as both pilot and security officer. As they approached the massive alien ship, its true size became apparent. The vessel was a city in space, its hull covered in patterns that seemed to move and shift in the starlight. "Remember," Baker told her team, "we represent all of humanity today. Let's make it count." The docking process went smoothly. Too smoothly, Mitchell thought. The Zaxians seemed to have complete control of their shuttle systems during the final approach. He made a note of this, but kept his concerns to himself for the moment. Inside the Zaxian ship, the human delegation found themselves in surroundings that looked more like a palace than a spacecraft. The walls appeared to be made of living metal that pulsed with soft light, and the air carried a sweet, unfamiliar scent. The Zaxian diplomatic team, led by High Commander Verix, greeted them with what appeared to be genuine warmth. Through their advanced translation systems, communication was almost seamless. However, something about their attitude bothered Baker, a subtle condescension in their tone, perhaps, or the way they seemed to talk down to the humans as if speaking to children. "Your species has progressed remarkably quickly," Verix said, his 4 arms moving in complex patterns that seemed to emphasize his words. "From primitive combustion engines to basic space travel in less than 2 centuries. Most species take at least twice as long." Baker maintained her diplomatic smile, but she noticed Dr. Howard tense slightly beside her. The Zaxian's tone was becoming increasingly patronizing as the meeting continued. The real trouble started when Verix brought up the concept of a protectorate status for Earth. "Your world would benefit greatly from our guidance," he explained. "We can protect you from the more aggressive species in the galaxy while helping you develop in a proper and controlled manner." "Thank you for the offer," Baker replied carefully, "but Earth and humanity are capable of managing our own development. We're interested in equal diplomatic relations and cultural exchange." Something shifted in Verix's expression, a hardening around his eyes that made Baker's military instincts kick into high alert. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Mitchell had been quietly scanning their surroundings with a modified sensor hidden in what appeared to be a simple tablet. What he found made his blood run cold. While the diplomats continued their increasingly tense discussion, Mitchell discreetly showed Baker his findings. The Zaxian ship was bristling with weapons, most of them aimed directly at Earth. What's more, several smaller vessels were hidden behind the main ship, their engines hot and ready for launch. Baker knew they needed to buy time. She engaged Verix in a lengthy discussion about cultural exchange, all while using hand signals to instruct Mitchell to gather more data. The lieutenant worked quickly, documenting everything he could about the Zaxian's weapon systems and ship capabilities. The meeting ended with polite words masking hard tensions. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Varix made what he probably thought was a generous offer. You have 1 Earth week to accept our protection. After that, we cannot guarantee your safety from other galactic powers that might take an interest in your world. The threat was clear, though carefully worded. Back on their shuttle, Baker's team maintained radio silence, aware that the Zaxians were likely monitoring all communications. It wasn't until they were safely back on Earth that they shared their findings with the Global Defense Council. They're not here for diplomatic relations, Baker reported to the assembled leaders. Based on Lieutenant Mitchell's scans, they have enough firepower on that ship to level every major city on Earth, and those hidden vessels. They're troop carriers. The next few days were a blur of activity. While maintaining a facade of diplomatic discussions, Earth's military forces quietly went on high alert. Space stations were evacuated of all non-essential personnel, and defensive systems were brought online across the globe. The Zaxians made their move before the week was up. They launched their first strike against Earth's orbital stations, expecting an easy victory against what they saw as primitive human defenses. They didn't expect the stations to be mostly empty, nor did they anticipate that humans would have already begun adapting their defensive strategies based on Mitchell's scans of Zaxian technology. The first battle for Earth's orbit lasted 6 hours. While the humans couldn't prevent the destruction of 2 space stations, they managed to destroy 3 Zaxian troop carriers using concentrated missile barrages that overwhelmed the alien shields through sheer numbers. It wasn't a victory, but it wasn't the easy conquest the Zaxians had planned either. As Commander Baker stood in the emergency command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching the aftermath of the battle, she knew this was just the beginning. They thought we'd be easy prey, she told her staff. They thought we'd just roll over and accept their protection. Well, they're about to learn something about humanity that many others have learned before. We don't take kindly to bullies, no matter what planet they're from. The war had begun, and humanity faced its greatest challenge. But in the coming months, the Zaxians would learn that humans had one advantage they hadn't counted on: the ability to innovate and adapt at an incredible pace. The real question was whether this ability would be enough to save Earth from an empire that spanned the stars. As Baker looked at the determined faces around her in the command center, she felt a surge of pride and hope. They had a lot of work ahead of them, but humans had always been at their best when facing impossible odds. The Zaxians had made a serious mistake in underestimating Earth, and they were about to find out just how serious that mistake was. The underground labs of Luna Base hummed with activity. 2 weeks had passed since the first Zaxian attack, and Earth's best minds had gathered in humanity's largest off-world facility. The moon's lower gravity meant they could build bigger testing chambers, and its distance from Earth made it safer for experimental weapons research. Chief Engineer Patricia Wells stood before a large window overlooking Testing Chamber 3, where the remains of a Zaxian shield generator lay scattered across the floor. They had recovered it from one of the destroyed troop carriers, but so far, none of their weapons could replicate its power. The problem isn't just their technology, she explained to the gathered team. It's that we're thinking about shields all wrong. She picked up a piece of the alien device, its surface still gleaming despite the damage. We're trying to copy them instead of beating them. Dr. Kevin Howard, who had been present at the first contact meeting, nodded in agreement. He had spent the last week studying the mining lasers used in the asteroid belt. Look at this, he said, pulling up a video on the main screen. It showed a mining beam cutting through rock like butter. We already have tools that can cut through almost anything. We just never thought to use them as weapons. The team worked around the clock, converting mining equipment into military gear. They found that the focused plasma beams used to cut asteroids could be modified to disrupt Zaxian shield harmonics. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. Mary Thompson, a quantum physicist who had been studying dark matter, made the next breakthrough. She had noticed something strange about the Zaxian shields during the first battle. They don't just block things, she explained, pointing to her data. They redirect energy to specific frequencies. If we can hit those frequencies with the right timing, we can overload their whole system. The next few days were a blur of testing and modification. They combined the mining laser technology with Mary's frequency discovery. The result was ugly but effective: the harmonic disruptor. It looked like someone had attached a mining laser to a satellite dish, but its first test brought cheers to the observation room. "It's not pretty," Patricia said, watching the test weapon tear through a replicated Zaxian shield. "But it works, and we can build these fast using parts we already have." The team's excitement was cut short by an urgent message from Earth. The Zaxians had begun positioning their fleet for a major assault. Their target wasn't Earth this time. It was Mars. The red planet housed humanity's newest and most vulnerable colonies, and the Zaxians thought destroying them would force Earth to surrender. They didn't count on human stubbornness. Within days, every mining ship in the asteroid belt was being retrofitted with the new weapons. Engineers worked in shifts, converting industrial equipment into tools of war. The ugly but effective human weapons weren't as elegant as Zaxian technology, but they had one major advantage. They could be mass-produced quickly using existing facilities. Patricia led the modification efforts herself, working alongside the miners and engineers. "Remember," she told her teams, "it doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to work." The miners, practical people used to jerry-rigging equipment to keep it running in space, took to the work with enthusiasm. Mary Thompson's team made another discovery while studying Zaxian communication signals. The aliens used quantum entanglement for instant communication across space, but their system had a weakness. It couldn't handle random noise on multiple frequencies at once. This led to the development of what they called the static bomb, a device that could temporarily blind Zaxian ships by overloading their communication systems. The innovations kept coming. Someone noticed that the coolant systems used in deep space mining could be modified to absorb energy from Zaxian weapons. Another team found that the sonic drills used for core sampling could interfere with alien sensor systems. Each discovery was quickly turned into a weapon or defense system. Dr. Howard spent his time studying the Zaxian bodies recovered from the destroyed troop carriers. He found that their four-armed biology made them excellent at handling complex equipment, but it also meant they thought in patterns. "They're too perfect," he explained during a briefing. "They expect everything to follow logical rules. They don't understand human chaos." This insight led to a completely new approach to space combat. Instead of trying to match Zaxian precision, human ships would fight unpredictably. Mining ships would charge straight at enemy vessels, their modified drilling lasers cutting through shields. Cargo haulers became impromptu carriers, their huge holds filled with makeshift fighter craft built from mining pods. Patricia watched the transformation with pride. In just 3 weeks, humanity had gone from being nearly defenseless against Zaxian technology to having a fighting chance. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't elegant, but it was very human. The real test came when they detected the first wave of Zaxian ships approaching Mars. The aliens had no idea that the seemingly primitive mining ships scattered throughout the asteroid belt were now armed and ready. They didn't expect the ugly, cobbled-together weapons that could tear through their perfect shields. Most of all, they didn't expect humans to fight back with such creativity and determination. "All ships, prepare for combat." Patricia's voice crackled over the communication system. She stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching as hundreds of modified mining ships moved into position. "Remember your training, but also remember this. We're fighting for our right to exist as a free species. The Zaxians think their technology makes them superior. Let's show them that human ingenuity is more powerful than any advanced alien tech." As the Zaxian fleet approached Mars, they maintained their perfect formation, their ships arranged in precise geometric patterns. They expected an easy victory over what they thought was a primitive species. Instead, they were about to face something they had never encountered before: human unpredictability combined with desperate innovation. The battle for Mars was about to begin, and it would show the galaxy something new. That sometimes the most effective weapons don't come from centuries of development, but from necessity and creative thinking. The Zaxians were about to learn that humans could turn anything into a weapon when they needed to, even the tools they used for mining and construction. As Patricia gave the order to begin the defense of Mars, she couldn't help but smile. The Zaxians had wanted to make humanity their protectorate, to guide their development along approved lines. Instead, they had forced humans to develop faster than anyone thought possible. Sometimes, she thought, the best innovations come from having your back against the wall. The red dust of Mars swirled around Olympus Mons base as Colonel Richard Phillips studied the tactical display. Hundreds of red dots representing Zaxian ships approached the planet. The blue dots showing human ships looked small in comparison, but Phillips smiled. Size wasn't everything. "Status report on the Ghost Protocol," he asked, turning to Engineer Laura Martinez. She stood at her station, dark circles under her eyes from weeks of non-stop work. "Ready, sir," she replied. "We've modified all the mining tunnels under Olympus Mons with the stealth field generators. The Zaxians won't see anything until it's too late." The Ghost Protocol was Martinez's biggest achievement. She had discovered that the dust suppression fields used in Mars mining operations could be modified to bend light and sensor readings. The entire mountain was now essentially invisible to Zaxian scanners. "All ships maintain radio silence," Phillips ordered through the secure channel. "Remember your training. Wait for them to get close." The converted mining ships stayed hidden in the asteroid field between Mars and Jupiter, their engines cold, waiting for the perfect moment. The Zaxian fleet approached with their usual perfect formation. Their ships gleamed in the sunlight, a sharp contrast to the crude-looking human vessels. The alien commander's voice boomed across all frequencies, speaking in perfect English. "People of Mars colonies, your primitive defenses cannot stop us. Surrender now, and we will ensure your survival as workers in the Empire. Resist, and we will be forced to demonstrate our power." Phillips waited. The Zaxians had no idea that Olympus Mons, the largest mountain in the solar system, had been turned into one giant weapon. Years of mining had created a vast network of tunnels throughout the mountain. Now those tunnels housed something very different from mining equipment. The Zaxian fleet moved closer, their sensors showing nothing but a few scattered defense platforms around the Mars colonies. They didn't detect the modified mining lasers hidden in the mountain's caves. They couldn't see the improvised shield disruptors waiting in the old mining shafts. "Let them get closer," Phillips whispered, watching the display. The Zaxians spread their fleet in a perfect half-sphere around Olympus Mons, exactly as predicted. They always used the same tactical patterns, a weakness that humans had learned to exploit. When the first Zaxian ship moved into position above the mountain, Martinez pressed a button. The Ghost Protocol deactivated, revealing hundreds of weapon ports across the mountain's surface. Before the Zaxians could react, the modified mining lasers fired. The effect was immediate and devastating. The harmonics disruptors tore through the Zaxian shields as if they weren't there. The alien ships, designed for perfect coordination, fell into chaos as their communication systems were overwhelmed by the static bombs. "Now," Phillips ordered, and the human fleet sprang into action. The converted mining ships fired up their engines and charged forward. They moved erratically, not following any pattern, making it impossible for the Zaxians to predict their movements. Martinez's next surprise came from the mountain itself. She had modified the dust suppression fields to create a massive cloud of electrically charged particles. The cloud disrupted Zaxian sensors and shield systems even further, while the human ships, protected by modified coolant systems, moved through it easily. The battle turned into exactly the kind of chaos that humans excelled at. Mining pods converted into fighters darted between the larger ships, their crude but effective weapons causing havoc. Cargo haulers released swarms of small drones, originally designed for asteroid sampling, but now carrying disruptor charges. The Zaxian commander tried to restore order, but their rigid tactical doctrine worked against them. They couldn't adapt fast enough to the humans' unpredictable attacks. Their perfect formations became a weakness, making it easy for human ships to predict where they would move next. A crucial moment came when a Zaxian cruiser, trying to target the mountain, moved directly into position above the largest mining shaft. Phillips had been waiting for this. He gave the signal, and Martinez activated the shaft's gravity generators, equipment normally used to help move ore. The focused gravitational beam pulled the massive alien ship straight down, crushing it against the mountain's surface. They're breaking formation. Someone shouted. The Zaxian fleet, for the first time in their history, began to retreat in disorder. Their perfect tactics had failed against human improvisation and creativity. The battle wasn't over yet. A group of Zaxian ships, desperate to salvage something from the defeat, turned toward the civilian colonies. They didn't expect the colony's life support systems to have been modified into weapons. The atmospheric processors, designed to make Mars air breathable, released clouds of corrosive gas, a byproduct usually filtered out of the air. The gas ate through the Zaxian ships' hulls, forcing them to retreat. Phillips watched as the remaining alien ships fled toward the outer solar system. The battle had lasted less than 6 hours, but it had changed everything. Humans hadn't just defended Mars. They had defeated the most powerful military force in the known galaxy using modified mining equipment and creative thinking. "Send word to Earth," he ordered. "Mars is secure. The Zaxians are retreating." He turned to Martinez, who was already working on improvements to the Ghost Protocol. "How long until they come back?" "They'll be back," she said, not looking up from her work. "But next time, we'll be even better prepared. I've got some ideas about using the mineral processing plants as weapon factories." News of the victory spread quickly through the solar system. The Zaxians, with their superior technology and centuries of military experience, had been defeated by human miners and engineers using modified industrial equipment. It was more than a military victory. It was proof that humanity could stand against any alien threat. As Phillips looked out over the red Martian landscape, he thought about how this battle would change everything. The Zaxians had believed that their advanced technology made them invincible. Instead, they had learned that true strength comes from creativity and adaptability, not just technological superiority. Martinez joined him at the window, her tablet showing plans for more modifications to their defenses. "You know what the best part is?" she asked. "Every time they attack us, we learn more about their technology. Every battle makes us stronger." Phillips nodded. The Zaxians had wanted to make humanity their protectorate, to control human development. Instead, they had forced humans to develop faster than anyone thought possible. The Battle of Olympus Mons wasn't just a victory. It was the beginning of a new era for humanity. Ambassador Daniel Carter stood before the Galactic Council, his heart pounding but his voice steady. The circular chamber rose high above him, filled with representatives from 100 different species. Many of them had never seen a human in person before. Now, they all watched him with intense interest. "Members of the council," he began, "I come before you today not to ask for help, but to present evidence." He gestured, and holographic images appeared in the center of the chamber. They showed the Zaxian ships approaching Earth, their weapons ready before any diplomatic talks had even begun. The chamber erupted in whispers. The Zaxians were respected members of the council, known for their advanced technology and civilized behavior. The idea that they would attempt to forcibly subjugate another species shocked many of the representatives. "This is outrageous." The Zaxian representative stood up, his forearms moving in angry gestures. "These humans are lying. They attacked our peaceful diplomatic mission." Carter stayed calm. He had been expecting this. "If I may continue," he said, pressing a button on his console. New images appeared, showing the hidden Zaxian troop carriers and their weapons aimed at Earth. These scans were taken during the first contact meeting. As you can see, the Zaxian fleet was prepared for invasion before they even spoke to us. Dr. Amy Richardson, who stood beside Carter, added her own evidence. She was the lead scientist who had studied the Zaxian shield technology and developed ways to counter it. We also discovered that their ships carried specialized weapons designed to target civilian populations. These are not the actions of a peaceful diplomatic mission. The council chamber grew quiet as more evidence was presented. The Zaxian representatives' protests grew weaker as Carter showed recording after recording of their unprovoked attacks on Earth's orbital stations and the Mars colonies. But the real shock came when Richardson demonstrated how humans had developed countermeasures to Zaxian technology. "We didn't just defend ourselves," she explained. "We found ways to improve upon their designs." She showed how the human-made shield bypassing technology worked, explaining it in terms the council could understand. The effect was immediate. Representatives from smaller species began asking questions about the technology. Many of them had lived under the shadow of more powerful empires, their development controlled by species like the Zaxians. The idea that a young civilization could successfully resist a major power gave them hope. A representative from the Nixus, a small species that had been under Zaxian protection for centuries, stood up. "How long did it take your people to develop these defenses?" she asked. "Less than a month," Richardson replied. The chamber erupted again, this time in amazement. Species typically took years or decades to develop new military technology. The human rate of innovation was unprecedented. Carter watched as the council's mood shifted. The Zaxians had made a serious mistake. By attacking Earth, they had forced humans to innovate at an incredible pace. Now that innovation was spreading across the galaxy. The Zaxian representative tried one last tactic. "These humans are dangerous," he declared. "Their rapid development threatens the stability of the galaxy. They must be contained." An older member of the council, a Centaurian known for his wisdom, spoke up. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "it is not the humans who threaten stability, but those who would force their will upon others. We have watched many young species develop. Some grow slowly, others quickly. But when we try to control their growth, we often create exactly what we fear." Small groups of representatives began forming, discussing the implications of what they had seen. Several approached Carter and Richardson, asking about possible trade agreements and technological exchanges. The humans' ability to take existing technology and improve it in unexpected ways made them valuable potential allies. The Zaxian Empire's influence in the council was crumbling. News of their failed invasion attempt spread quickly through galactic communication channels. Other species began questioning their protective relationships with the Empire. Some even started secretly studying human innovation methods. Back in the human delegation's quarters, Carter reviewed the day's events with his team. "We didn't just defend Earth," he said. "We changed the whole balance of power in the galaxy." He looked at Richardson, who was already working on new improvements to their shield technology. "The Zaxians thought they could control us. Instead, we're teaching the galaxy how to resist control." Richardson nodded, not looking up from her work. "The funny thing is," she said, "we're not even trying to change things. We're just doing what humans always do, finding new ways to solve problems." She showed him her latest project, a way to help smaller species modify their existing technology to resist Zaxian control. The next few days saw a flurry of diplomatic activity. Species that had never paid attention to Earth now sought human expertise. The Nixus requested help upgrading their defensive systems. The Centaurians offered to exchange their advanced medical knowledge for human innovation techniques. Even some members of the Zaxian Empire reached out secretly. Not all Zaxians supported their government's aggressive expansion policies. A group of Zaxian scientists, impressed by human creativity, proposed a secret exchange of ideas. Carter found himself working around the clock, handling requests from dozens of species. Each wanted to learn from the humans, not just about technology, but about their way of thinking. How did humans come up with new ideas so quickly? How did they turn simple mining tools into powerful weapons? What made them so adaptable? "It's not just about the technology," he explained to a group of interested representatives. It's about freedom. When you try to control development, you limit creativity. Humans advanced so quickly because we had to, but also because we were free to try new things, to fail, to learn, and to try again. As the council session drew to a close, it was clear that the galaxy had changed. The Zaxian Empire faced internal political crisis as more species questioned their authority. Smaller civilizations began forming alliances, sharing technology and ideas in new ways. And at the center of it all was Earth, a planet that had gone from unknown backwater to galactic innovator in a matter of months. Carter prepared for his return journey to Earth, carrying with him dozens of requests for cooperation and alliance. The Zaxians had wanted to make humanity their protectorate. Instead, they had introduced the galaxy to a new way of thinking, one that valued creativity and freedom over control and domination. Sometimes, he told Richardson as their ship prepared to leave, the best way to change the galaxy isn't through force or advanced technology. Sometimes all you need is to show people that there's another way. He looked out at the stars, thinking about how much had changed in such a short time. The Zaxians taught us that we needed to innovate to survive. Now we're teaching the galaxy that innovation comes from freedom. The Galactic Council's emergency session was unlike any in its 1,000-year history. Representatives from every known species packed the great chamber. At the center of attention stood Captain Christopher Hayes, commander of Earth's newest defense ship. He wasn't there to fight. He was there to demonstrate how much humanity had changed the rules of space warfare. What you're about to see, Hayes explained, is our latest defensive technology. He nodded to his crew, and they activated the ship's systems. The massive vessel, floating outside the council station, suddenly disappeared from all sensors. It wasn't just invisible, it was as if it had never existed. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The Zaxian representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had spent the last year watching their influence crumble as more and more species adopted human innovations. Now, Earth was about to change everything again. Sandra Miller, the newly appointed human representative to the Galactic Defense Committee, stood up to explain. "This isn't just a cloaking device," she said. "It's a complete defense system that makes any ship virtually untouchable. And yes, we're willing to share this technology with peaceful species who want to protect themselves." The impact of her words was immediate. For centuries, the galaxy's smaller species had lived under the protection of larger empires, trading their freedom for safety. Now, Earth was offering them a way to defend themselves. "But how can we trust humans with such power?" a Zaxian delegate demanded. "They developed from a primitive species to a major military power in less than a year." Miller smiled. "That's exactly why you can trust us," she replied. "We know what it's like to be threatened by a more powerful species. We remember what it feels like to be called primitive. That's why we're not keeping this technology to ourselves." Hayes added his own thoughts. "Humanity's strength isn't in our weapons or our shields. It's in our ability to share ideas and work together. Every innovation we've made came from combining different people's ideas and experiences." To prove his point, Hayes invited delegates to tour the human ship. They saw how Earth's engineers had combined mining technology with Zaxian shield designs. They watched demonstrations of weapons that used simple physics in creative ways. Most importantly, they saw how humans work together, sharing ideas freely and building on each other's work. The Centaurian High Council member, impressed by what he saw, made an unprecedented proposal. "Perhaps," he suggested, "it's time for a new approach to galactic defense. Instead of powerful empires protecting weaker species, we could create a system where all species protect themselves and each other." This idea spread quickly through the council. Species that had been rivals for centuries began discussing cooperation, the human approach to innovation. Sharing ideas and building on each other's work was changing how the galaxy thought about power and progress. Even some Zaxians were changing their minds. A group of young Zaxian engineers, fascinated by human creativity, proposed a joint research project. They wanted to combine Zaxian precision with human adaptability. Their older leaders objected at first, but the potential benefits were too great to ignore. Miller spent hours in meetings with representatives from different species. Some wanted to learn about human technology. Others were more interested in understanding how humans thought and solved problems. A few even asked about Earth's entertainment and art, fascinated by how human creativity expressed itself in all areas of life. The key, Miller explained to a group of curious delegates, is that we don't try to control innovation. We let people try new things, even if they might fail. Sometimes the best ideas come from unexpected places. She told them about Laura Martinez, who had turned mining dust suppressors into stealth technology. She described how Dr. Richardson had improved Zaxian shields by studying Earth's old radio broadcasts. Each story showed how human innovation came from freedom and creativity, not rigid control. The emergency session lasted a week. By the end, the galaxy had changed forever. The Council created a new Department of Innovation, with Sandra Miller as its first director. Its goal was to help species share ideas and develop new technologies together. The Zaxian Empire, faced with this new reality, began to change too. Their younger generation pushed for reforms, inspired by human adaptability. They started allowing more freedom in their research and development programs. Some Zaxian scientists even moved to Earth to study human innovation methods. Captain Hayes watched all this from his ship's observation deck. A year ago, he said to his crew, "We were fighting for our survival. Now we're teaching the galaxy a new way to think about progress." Back on Earth, the changes were just as dramatic. The planet had become a center for galactic innovation. Ships from hundreds of species visited Earth's universities and research centers. Human creativity, combined with alien technology, was producing advances that would have seemed impossible a year earlier. In her new office at the Galactic Defense Committee, Miller looked at the latest reports. Species that had been stuck at the same technological level for centuries were suddenly making breakthrough after breakthrough. The galaxy was changing faster than anyone had expected. The Zaxians thought they were coming to guide our development, she told her staff. Instead, we showed the galaxy that real progress comes from freedom, creativity, and cooperation. She picked up a small device on her desk, a combination of human and Zaxian technology that could power a small city. It was ugly by Zaxian standards, a mess of different parts working together in unexpected ways. But it worked better than anything either species had created alone. That's humanity's real gift to the galaxy, she said, looking at the device. Not our weapons or our shields, but our way of thinking. We showed them that the best way to grow isn't through control and protection, but through freedom and cooperation. As the day ended, Miller stood at her window, watching ships from dozens of species moving through space around the Council station. Each one carried ideas and innovations that would have been impossible a year ago. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had led the way. The Zaxians had wanted to make Earth their protectorate, to guide human development according to their rules. Instead, they had unleashed something far more powerful, humanity's ability to innovate, adapt, and share ideas freely. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what it needed.